Do you know the secret health risks in the everyday items that you might be using? That's the topic that we're going to address today on Flourish-Meant. I'm your host, Tina Yeager, and today I have a remarkable guest with me. Her name is Katy Talento, and she is an epidemiologist who served as a top health advisor to the White House. She's now executive director of the Alliance of Healthcare Sharing Ministries, and I'm delighted to bring her expertise and her heart here to you today on Flourish-Meant. Welcome, Katy. I'm delighted to have you on the show and can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Thank you so much, Tina. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Katy, let's dive right in. What are some of the health risks that we don't even know are in the items that we might be using every day?
Well, gosh, there are so many. I mean, honestly, if you just think about food alone, there are 10,000 legal food ingredients in America, but only several hundred in Europe. So if you think about how unregulated our food supply is, it starts to get pretty dangerous. And then you start looking at water contaminants and our environmental contaminants in our air. So it's a little scary, you know, the types of materials that are even in our clothing, right? We wear rayon and spandex and, you know, all this stretchy material. It's plastic, right? So we have microplastics all in us. So it's rough out there, but there are a few things that we need to be particularly mindful of. If I had to sort of target low-hanging fruit for people to think about, and that would be heavy metals. So some of the worst heavy metals you can think about are aluminum, cadmium, lead, mercury, arsenic is something that happens in water as well. So these 5 are some of the worst heavy metals, and they are all neurotoxins. They cause neurodevelopmental problems. They cause IQ problems, even death, depending on the dose. So these heavy metals are in almost everything, but especially in things you might not expect. For instance, baby food, like the type that you use when you're weaning a baby off breast milk or formula onto solid foods, and you start having those cereals, you know, like the oat cereals or the wheat cereals that you feed a little baby, rice cereals, that is riddled with heavy metals. And, you know, right at this time, vulnerable time for our babies. But another more recent story about heavy metals in, you know, sort of food that we're unsuspecting about that we trust a little too much is Girl Scout cookies. So moms across America just came out with they commissioned a study to evaluate the presence of heavy metals in and another poison called glyphosate, which is a pesticide used ubiquitously all over any wheat products and many, almost all produce. Is glyphosate, otherwise known as Roundup. That's what we buy when we want to kill things. And yet it's all over our food. So they tested for glyphosate and for heavy metals, and it was shocking. 100% of Girl Scout cookies were contaminated with glyphosate. Now, glyphosate, like I said, it's a weed killer. It's a pesticide. You know, it's designed to kill things that are alive. And that includes the gut lining in our stomach, the microbiome in our GI tract. And because of that, it leads to cancer. I mean, glyphosate is well known to be associated with cancer, with endocrine disruption, that's hormone problems, gut issues, miscarriage, sperm damage, autism, and reproductive damage of all sorts. So it's really dangerous. The manufacturer, a giant company named Monsanto that was bought by Bayer recently, that's like the aspirin people, they have had to pay out billions. In fact, our current Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert Kennedy Jr., he actually was one of the lawyers on that case, suing Monsanto on behalf of migrant agricultural workers who were spreading Roundup. This is really scary. So all Girl Scout cookies. And then also in our Girl Scout cookies, we have 100% of them, if I recall, were positive for 4 out of 5 toxic metals. The ones I mentioned, aluminum, cadmium, lead, mercury, and arsenic. So scary stuff out there. This is really what happens when you have processed non-organic food. If you buy organic food, you're not going to get glyphosate. You're not going to get pesticides. You're not going to get, often if it's livestock, you're not going to get vaccinated livestock or antibiotics given to livestock. They're not going to be fed food that's been covered in pesticides or food that is, riddled with seed oils and that sort of thing. So this is really important to focus on organic, but also to get away from the processed food. Glyphosate is in everything, and that's especially true of wheat products like crackers and cereal and everything that you get in the middle aisles of the grocery store. So we got to be careful. We got to be careful out there.
So how many Girl Scout cookies can we tolerate before our system is overloaded? There's no way to get rid of everything. And I know there are people out there that are addicted to these. What do we need to really do? To what extreme do we need to go to get rid of the processed foods and the things that are toxic to us in our diet?
Well, we have to remember what our bodies were made for, right? If you think about sort of the caveman or the Adam and Eve situation, what kind of diet is native, natural to humans? And it's not processed chemicals that you could never find in any kitchen from any century in human history, right? So if it requires a factory to manufacture an ingredient, or if it's something that you have never ever seen in anyone's kitchen, then you shouldn't be putting it in your body. So, it's essentially like we're not going out and drinking rat poison, right? But these chemicals in many cases are similar. Now, does that mean we wouldn't survive if there were a tiny speck of rat poison, on a very healthy apple or something? No, we would probably survive. Our bodies are made to encounter toxins here and there, right? If you're a caveman, you're out in the world, you might occasionally eat something that was already dead and it's a little rotten, or a fruit that's a little rotten, or a little bit of a poisonous berry here and there, right? So our bodies are designed to be able to handle a little bit of exposure, but not constant assault. And right now, Tina, the calories that we take in on average from ultra processed food is more than 60% of our calories. For adults, it's 2/3 of our calories. For children, it's 75% of their calories. So that is not what our bodies are able to handle and able to tolerate. And that's why we are the sickest, fattest, saddest, most infertile population in human history.
We can tolerate a small amount. So because we're overexposed, we need to limit and minimize our exposure in our diet. And our bodies don't just absorb toxins through our diet. We also absorb them through our skin. What are some of the other things that we are finding that are toxic in our everyday use that we might not even think about?
Yeah, so I mentioned one of them earlier, and that's microplastics. So every time you're wearing clothes that are stretchy, which is all of us, all the time, especially think about your underwear closest to your body, right? Closest to very important parts of your body. So those are stretchy materials that we have. If it's stretchy, it is plastic. That's what spandex is there. And so when you test people's bodies, and brains have been tested in autopsies for microplastics, we are riddled with microplastics. And these are endocrine disruptors. So they are what are making us infertile and also leading to a number of chronic illnesses. So that's, our clothing is one of those first real trouble spots. But also fragrances, artificial fragrances are really dangerous. And they're in every personal care product you can imagine, from the stuff we use in our hair to lotions that we slather all over our skin. So really the way to think about this is your skin is your largest consumptive organ, right? You think it's what you eat. Actually, your skin is the largest organ. It's much bigger than your GI tract. So the question then is, if you would not eat it or consume it in your mouth, you shouldn't put it on your skin. That's basically the principle to think about. So how do we lotion up our skin? Well, you can use coconut oil. You can use tallow and lard-based products, which are wonderful for the skin and often will resolve rashes and, psoriasis and skin conditions that people suffer with. If you start to use these animal products on your skin, or saturated fats like coconut oil, shea butter, avocado oil, aloe. So these types of plant-based materials are great. And the same thing for our hair products. So we really need to be thinking about clean hair products, shampoo and soap products. Goat milk, all kinds of milk-based soaps. There are all kinds of beautiful, clean products out there, but it requires a really different kind of shopping experience. And that's true for the food too. So when I talk about, hey, we need to stay away from those center aisles in the grocery store and stick to the outside where there's produce and where there's meat and dairy. And even with the meat and dairy and produce, sticking to an organic, non-GMO. We should talk about GMO foods as well. Genetically modified foods doesn't just mean like, oh, we're bioengineering it to be better and more tasty. And no, the engineering they're doing is to make them more resistant to those pesticides so that they can put more pesticides on the crop and only the weeds and bugs die and not the crop itself that they're trying to do. So it allows them to put more Roundup all over our food if it's GMO. So you really want to avoid GMO products. So yeah, fragrances, artificial fragrances are really dangerous, carcinogenic, and neurotoxic. Also fluoride in our toothpaste and in our mouthwash, very dangerous to have antibiotic mouthwashes. They're getting rid of the wonderful flora and fauna in our mouth. Our microbiome in our gut starts in our mouth. And so that's really important for our dental health and for our entire body's health. So fluoride in the water has finally been exposed for the neurotoxin that it is. A court recently found that the lawsuit was against the EPA and had wrongly approved fluoride for including in our water. So it is a neurotoxin. It drops IQ points in children. And now you're seeing the state of Florida is starting to talk about banning fluoride in the water. Utah has already done so. And a number of localities and other jurisdictions are doing this. Most countries outside of the US do not use fluoride in the water. The supposed dental benefits are in question. And they are, what is not in question is the dramatic neurotoxic hazard. So the risk benefit calculus there is, okay, I have, healthier teeth, but I'm dropping IQ points. I'm having neurotoxicity. I think most parents, if they were given that stark choice, and that kind of informed consent, would choose without a product without fluoride.
Katy, how can people get more resources for their health so they can stay healthy by connecting with you and the Alliance of Healthcare Sharing Ministries?
Yeah, so we strongly recommend joining a healthcare sharing ministry where you can be connected to other people who really take our health seriously. In a healthcare sharing ministry, we commit to treating our bodies as temples of the Holy Spirit. So it's important to think about a healthcare sharing ministry instead of health insurance. So yeah, you can reach us at our website at ahcsm.org. That's the Alliance of Healthcare Sharing Ministries, ahcsm.org. You can reach me at Katy Talento on Twitter or LinkedIn, X, or LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook at Katy Talento.
I hope that all of you listening were informed and equipped to better live your life in a healthy way and avoid these health risks. And of course, I also hope that you will come back for the next episode of Flourish-Meant.